talking about invoice validations. So invoice validations are the rules used for matching the details from purchase order to invoice. So what are these rules? What do we match really from purchase order to invoice? So what are the details that are obvious to be matched from purchase order to invoice? There are few like price, quantity, and charges. So we have what system will do is under invoice validations, it will compare the details on the purchase order like price, quantity, and charges, and between the purchase order and the invoice, so that you are going to post for the purchase order. It will look into these details, and it will validate if the details are perfect or matching to the PO to the invoice or not, or if it is varying so much. Suppose that on purchase order, there is a line with quantity of 10 and net amount of 1000, let's say. And on the invoice, if it is the same or not, system will look into it. If it is 10 quantity line and 1000 amount only. If the amount varies, like if the amount is like 1200, not 1000, so it will not allow the user to post the invoice, saying that this invoice failed in validation. Let's see the examples further, how it will work. So in this actually, under invoice validations, we have three types. So I'll show you. First one is invoice totals matching. Second one is price and quantity matching. Third one is charges matching. So you can say it in this way. So this one, invoice totals matching, compares each subtotal on the PO to each subtotal on invoice, which means compares each subtotal on PO to each subtotal on invoice, means it will compare all the totals from the purchase order level to the invoice level. Totals in the sense total of the products. Let's say two lines are there, 1000 plus 10,000, two products are there, which is for 11,000. So it will compare if this 11,000 is matching with the 11,000 amount on the invoice or not, or if there is an increase or decrease in the amount that is mentioned in the invoice. Second, it also compares charges total to the charges total, tax total to the tax total, and again the total of the purchase order amount to the total of the invoice amount. So each subtotal it will compare, as well as it will also compare the complete total at the end. So that's what happens at invoice totals matching. We'll see with the examples actually. Under price and quantity matching, we have two methods again. Two-way matching, three-way matching. So these are the different matchings we have, or the invoice validations. Oh shit. So let's discuss about one by one. First, let us discuss about invoice totals matching, then go back to charges matching, then come back here to price and quantity matching. Let's see how each of them work. So in order to identify the invoice validations or to activate the invoice validation, they would actually be here in accounts payable and accounts payable parameters. So under accounts payable, we have accounts payable parameters under setup. So here you have something called as invoice validation. Under this, there is a menu. So enable invoice matching validation. If you enable this, then only you have the validation. So on other than that, you see all of them are grayed out, not available. Only when you enable this option, enable invoice matching validation, you have different types of invoice matching. So invoice totals matching, price and quantity matching, charges matching, which are the three main things we have. And again, under price and quantity matching, we have either two-way matching or three-way matching or not required. So we'll come back to this point again. So let's see this one, enable invoice matching validation. Okay. Then in case if there are any discrepancies when the system try to compare the purchase order with the invoice, if it identifies any discrepancies, what system should do? It should allow with a warning or it requires an approval. So it should allow with a warning means it says that there are some discrepancies between purchase order and invoice. However, it will allow you to post the invoice or allow the user to post the invoice, but just the warning will be displayed. Or you can say that if there are any such discrepancies compared from purchase order to invoice, then it must require an approval. It should not allow the user to post the invoice and it requires an approval always. So we'll see this part as well, how it requires an approval and how we can approve the invoices with discrepancies. Then automatically update invoice status header. Actually, this option is used for we always used to click on update my status button on the invoice when we have to post it. So if we enable this one, that button will disappear and it will automatically update the match status. That's what we'll see this one as well. So for now, I'm just disabling it so that I can manually click on update match status option. So then here I have invoice totals matching. So it is not mandatory that you have to use all the matching processes. So you can use all of them even. So most of them would not prefer to use all of them. Some people would prefer to use all of them. So if I am enabling this one, match invoice totals, okay. Here I have the option if greater than the tolerance or if greater than or less than the tolerance. Means suppose that if the, I'll just come back down here. If the PO total amount is 1000 and invoice total amount is also 1000, then there is no discrepancy. Both of them will match perfectly. And if at all there is a change, something like if the invoice amount is 1100, while in the PO we mentioned that it will be 1000, but while vendor delivered the goods and sent the invoice, he have charged us 1100 for the total of the goods. Then there is a discrepancy of 100. So in that case, system will say that the validation failed. The comparison between the purchase order total and invoice total failed. So what happens further is you have some tolerance limits. You can also set some tolerance limits to the system if greater than tolerance or if less greater than or less than tolerance, which means like suppose if I say tolerance percentage is 10%. If there is a 10% discrepancy also, system will match it, says that it is a fair discrepancy since we have given 10% of tolerance in the parameters, which means like on 1000, if the invoice total is 1100, system will now agree because it is within the 10% parameter or it's up to 10% only, right? When there is an increase of 10%, then only it is 1100. So since there is an increase of only 10%, system will agree, says that. So it is within the tolerance limit. The discrepancy between the PO and invoice is within the tolerance limit. So system will allow you to post the invoice. But if it is 1200, it is exceeding 10%. So if it is exceeding the tolerance percentage, then system will again fail the matching, saying that there is a lot of discrepancy between purchase order and invoice and more than the tolerance amount. So we can't proceed with this. That's what system says here. So this is how the invoice totals matching behave. And it not only compares the total amount of PO with the total amount of invoice, it also compares the subtotal amounts, as I said, like product amount as well as product amount to product amount separately, sales tax amount to sales tax amount separately, charges amount to charges amount separately, and total amount to total amount again separately, complete total amounts. So that's how the system will match in the invoice totals matching. We'll see an example now in a. So it can be either, if you can say that it can be greater than tolerance. If greater than tolerance, you can say that, or you can say if greater than or less than tolerance means invoice amount can also be uh, uh, lesser than what we have done, what we have compared to the PO total. So it can be 800 also. If it is 800, system will not allow you because it is way less than 1000 and less than 10% on 1000. So if it is something like 900 or 900 to 1000, it will allow, system will allow saying that it is within the tolerance limit. But most of them will not commit, will not configure this less than tolerance limits, because if it is less amount on the invoice, it is benefit to the company, right? So no need to stop the invoice when there is a less amount that has to be paid. But if it is a more amount or greater than amount, then it has to stop. That's what we have two different rules. That is why if greater than tolerance or if greater than or less than tolerance. Let's go with this one, if greater than or less than both of them, and let's see how it will work. Just saved the parameter. I'll duplicate the tab, but here I disable this one. The product matching as well as the charges matching, everything is disabled. Only invoice totals matching is available. Let's see how it will work now. I'm going to create a purchase order. And we'll create an invoice for it and see how it will work. So this is the actual document given by Microsoft regarding the matching policies. So it will also present you some good examples. I'll share this document with you in a while. So you can select a vendor account here to create a purchase order. I'll select this Nika products. Vendor number 3. Selected warehouse on site. Then I can click on OK. Select an item number. Select the same first item. Which is of 10 quantity. So let's say suppose 10 quantity, 100 each, total of 1000. Okay. Then I'll click on save. Purchase. Before that, I'll just try to add charges also in the for this. Actually, let me try to add some charges at the header level. Maintain charges. Oh, it's automatically adding charges of insurance 50 here. Okay, let's see the purchase order total now. So 1000 subtotal amount, and these are all the other subtotals like this total discount amount, total charges amount, total sales tax amount, total round off amount. But that charges amount is not showing up here because that's a third party charge. However, let's remove that third party charge and maintain a charge that is applicable on the vendor. I'll just delete this one. Add new. So I'm not packing actually. I'll add something like transport charges. This one, fixed amount of 50, let's say. So this is a charge that is not added onto the inventory but paid to the same vendor for which we are creating the PO. So now we'll go to purchase order and see the totals. So we have 1000 subtotal amount of goods plus 50 charges. So total order value is 1050. So the other sales tax and round off amounts is not given. So let it be like that. Then I can confirm the PO. So it's confirmed. Then we'll go to receive, post the product receipt for the total goods, and then we'll invoice it. Number. And then check if 10 quantity is being ordered. Yeah, it's being received. The order is received. Now we'll post the invoice. Go to invoice. So here I'll just give the invoice number INV 52 something. Then invoice date as today's or tomorrow's date, Monday's date. I can see here the 10 quantity, out of 100 each and 1000, as well as if I go to invoice, under invoice and go to, not here, totals here we have on the top. If I see the totals, so it is 1000 with subtotal amount, which is the product's amount, as well as charges is 50 only. So total 1050. Now I'll close this. You have the option here as update match status. The match status is not performed or the invoice validation is not done yet. If I click on this, then it will do the invoice validation and compare the totals from purchase order to invoice, and it is saying that it is passed here. We have given a tolerance limit of 10%. Suppose let's try to change this amount here. Let's say that vendor charged 120 for each cricket ball, not 100. Enough. Let me save this one. The total amount of the order we change it to 1200. So total net amount of the order is changed. Sorry, the line is changed, product amount is changed to 1200 now, which is more than 10% tolerance. Now The order again shows the match status is not performed since we have changed something. We have to again click on update match status. See, now it is showing as failed. So what could be the reason that it is showing as failed? Tolerance percentage, we have given only 10%. And the product amount here is exceeding the tolerance actually. So where we can check if it is exceeding or not exceeding, what exactly happened is here, if you click here, you can see the process called as review. This one, you can see a menu called as review. In this review, you can see matching details and policy violations. So on matching details, you can click here. There you can see what is exactly failing. It shows here price, quantity, and invoice totals. You can see here. But we are not in relation to price and quantity since we did not enable it yet. But we go to invoice totals. In the invoice totals, it is showing invoice amount is 1250, which is failed here. So you can also see this one, this option here under invoice totals. You see this invoice totals matching details, how it is comparing. You can see here. Click on this one. Here is what you see. Tolerance percentage is 10%. Invoice number is INV 52. Purchase order number is 14. You can see the subtotal amount, means the product amount. Product amount is compared to the product amount on the purchase order. This is invoice amount 1200. And expected invoice total means according to the purchase order amount, what expected is 1000. So the variance percentage is 20%, as you can see here, which is why the matching is failed for this comparison of this product amount. Coming to discount amount, it is 00, so there is no variance at all. Coming to charges, it is 50 and 50. There is no variance at all, so it is passed here. Coming to sales tax, we don't have any. Rounding off also, we don't have any. But at the end, coming to the invoice total amount, you have 1250 here and 1050 here. There is a variance of 19.05. Comparing everything, adding up all of this from this side and this side, have a variance of 19.05, which is also more than the tolerance amount of 10%. So it is failed in the validation. So is this comparison and the example is good for all of you? Clear? Let's say suppose let's alter something else. Let's go back. Let me change it to 1100 here and save it. Now if I click on update match status, so it is still showing as failed here. Let's see why it's still showing as failed. Let me go to matching details. Go to invoice totals. Go to invoice totals matching details. So it is passed actually, but why it is showing failed? Everything is passed here, right? But we did not enable price and quantity matching. It is showing failed in price matching. So not required, right? So wait a second. Mhm. There is no matching as far as I see. Maybe in the PO level we might have any. But to see in the invoice totals matching, it has passed it. But let me check once with the purchase order. I'll come back to the invoice again. It will still show in the pending invoices. So it's the purchase order. I'm at the purchase order level. Going to set up. Here the matching policy is three-way matching. I will set it to not required actually. It's not enabled properly or not refreshed. So at the line level also, for each line in the purchase order we can give policy, matching policy, or what you give it in the purchase order, I mean accounts payable parameters will be applicable to all of them. Now if it will show as not required, then I might have to confirm the order again. If I save it, still shows confirmed. Okay, then let me go to invoice, go to pending invoices, edit this. So match status has been set to not performed. You might have to update the match status. So now I'll click on update match status. It shows as passed. So it has removed that three-way matching policy anyway. Now you can see here matching details, where you can see invoice totals and invoice totals matching. You can see everything is passed here. 1100 and 1000 comparison, it is 10%. It is exactly up to the tolerance limit, so it passed it. So everything else it passed it here. You can also have a chance that charges amount also might differ sometimes. So if that happens, then that will fail. Let me show you that one. If I'm going to invoice, vendor invoice, no, not here, financials, then maintain charges. At the header level, we have $50 charge, right? I'll just change it to $56. Okay, see here, I'm changing it to $56. And the subtotal amount here, the invoice amount, I'll just change it to, let's say 10 quantity, right? So unit price, I'll just change it to 105, 1050. Okay, now I'll click on update match status. If I click on update match status, it shows as failed. Any idea? Anyone why it is showing as failed, even though the line amount is 1050? So it failed in charges comparison actually. If you want to check it, you can go to review here and click on matching details. So go to invoice totals and this one invoice totals matching details. See here 1050 is compared to 1000, which is only 5% variance. It passed here. But compare the charges to the charges, 56%, 56 it is on the invoice and 50 it was on the purchase order. So there is a 12% variance. So the $6 increase is up to 12% variance compared to both of them. So that failed. However, coming to invoice total amount at the I mean sum up of all the subtotals amounts, you can see here it is 1106 and the purchase order total is 1050, which is a variance of 5.33 only. It is passed here, but since one of the subtotal comparison failed, entire invoice validation will fail. So if any one of them will fail here, either if all of them are passed and this failed, then also the invoice validation will fail. Or if only this one fail and everything else is passed, then also the invoice validation will show up as failed. That's how. So got this example, all of you. Okay, everything should be in tolerance limit. All the subtotals comparison will should be in the tolerance limit, as well as the total amount is also should also be in the tolerance limit. In case if you are using tolerance. In case if you are not using any tolerance, if you kept this as 0, so everything should be exactly matching to the purchase order. Invoice amount should be exactly matching to the purchase order amounts. It won't accept even $1 of variance or 1 cent of variance also, if you are using tolerance percentage as 0. That's how. So now suppose if I close this one comparison, since this match status is failed here, if I try to post the invoice, let's see what happens. So it is showing an error message. Invoice could not post because it contained matching errors which must be approved. So it is showing this because in the parameters we have mentioned that approval is required when there is a discrepancy. So that is why it will not allow the user to post the invoice without approving it. So where to approve it, I'll show you further. So I'll can show you now even. Actually, when there are such discrepancies, you can always approve the invoice with discrepancies if it is a known discrepancy. So here in the matching details, you have the option here, approve posting with matching. Approve posting with matching discrepancies. You can approve this one and give a comment as approved, let's say, and save it. Now if you go back, if you run the match status, it will show as failed only again, but it will allow you to post the invoice since you have approved it. You see the invoice is posted and the invoice process is complete. So if you have discrepancies, we can use that option of approver and we can approve the discrepancies and post the invoice. Now you can see the invoice is posted here. That's all. Now let's see about the other one, which is called as charges matching. Let's see how the charges matching work. Okay, for that I'm going to again accounts payable parameters, invoice validation. Here what I'll do is I'll remove this totals matching option. Invoice totals I don't need, so I remove this. I only concentrate now on charges matching. Let's see how it will work. So here also you have the same option, if greater than or less than tolerance, and or if only greater than tolerance you can give. If you greater than less than tolerance means it the lower amount also it will compare. Here also I'll give 10%, let's say suppose. And then what I'll do is I'll just close this form and go to all purchase orders and create a new purchase order quickly. The same vendor, site and warehouse, and click on OK. Then give an item number, same item, let's say 10. Then what I'll do is I'll in the line level I'll give the charges. Here maintain charges option is there, right? So here I'll give a charge code of packing. Packing charges are adding on to the inventory and paid to the same vendor. So I'll give packing charges of $40, let's say 40 in the line level. And in the header level, I'll give another charge code, maintain charges. I'll remove this charge and I'll give the transport charge. So this one, this I'll give it as $60. Okay. So $60 of transport charge, $40 of packing charge, and the line amount is 1000. Totally the order amount should be 1100. So I'll show you the order totals here. On purchase order you can see totals. So you can see 1000 is the subtotal amount or the product line products amount, and then charges is 100. $60 at the header level and $40 of packing charges at the line level. Total is 100. Okay. I'll click on OK. I'll go for purchase and confirm. Then I can go to receive and post the product receipt. And same 1000, 10 into 100. So it's received. Now I'll go to invoice and click on generate invoice. Give an invoice number, something like 53. Okay, then go to invoice date as something like Monday. Now you can see here there is 10 and 100 and total of 1000. Suppose if you change here as 1200, let's say, and so not 1200, I'll just show you. And it show unit prices here as, let's say, 120 is the unit price, 1200. And then if I click on update my status, it shows passed because there is no comparison for prices, quantity, and invoice totals. We have not enabled any invoice validation for invoice totals matching or prices and quantity matching. So it shows that it is passed. But when you come to, when you make some changes in the charges, let's say suppose here we have, sorry, it should be under financials. Yes, here there is maintain charges option, right? So here I'll change this charge amount to 66. Okay, and I'll save it. Not 66, I'll change it to 67 and I'll save it, suppose. Now, if I click on update my status, it shows as failed. Let's see why it is showing as failed now. I will go to review here. Since we are using charges matching, right? So we'll go to matching details and see only the charges matching. So here we are, the invoice totals matching. Under this, we have only compare charge values. Since we have disabled that invoice totals, we don't see that here. We can see only charges matching option. So here you can click on compare charges values, where you can see the difference actually. Packing charges were like 40 and it is 40 according to, I mean, actual charges on the invoice is 40 and expected total calculated value is also 40, which is on the PO. So there is no variance. Whereas compared to this one, actual compared to the transport charges, it is 67 on the invoice, whereas it is only 60 on the purchase order. Variance amount is like $7 and the variance percentage is 11.67 percentage, which is why it is failed. So you can see the tolerance percentage is only 10% according to your parameters. But here it is changed to 11.67 or the tolerance is 11.67 for one of the charge. So that is why it is failing the invoice matching. You can see this one is failed. So what you have to understand here is in charges matching, system will compare each and every charge amount from the purchase order to the invoice. Sorry, from the invoice to the purchase order. So it will go from this way to that way. Not only the total amount of charges, but it will compare each charge amount to the other charge amount. So actually it will compare the charge amount, each charge amount from invoice to the purchase order and see if there is any variance of which is exceeding the tolerance limit. So if it happens as so, then it will fail the order. That's what. Suppose if I change the charge amount to 66 only, let's see what happens. Where it is? It is under financials. You can click on maintain charges. Suppose I'll change this to 66. Okay, and I'll save it. Go back and then click on update my status. It is showing as passed here. Then let's see why it is showing as passed. Go to matching details under review, then go to invoice totals and go for compare charge values. So you can see here 40 is matched with 40, no variance. 66 is matched with 60. There is a variance of $6, which is up to 10%, only 10% of variance, which is also a valid tolerance percentage. So it's a valid tolerance and the variance is in the valid tolerance percentage. So it matched and it shows it both of them are passed enough. So that's how the charges matching function. So charges matching, as I said, compares each charge code amount from invoice to PO. PO to invoice, anything will work actually. Invoice to PO or PO to invoice. So this is how. If you use both invoice totals matching and charges matching, what it will does is it will match the totals as well as it will also match the individual charges. Here in the invoice totals matching, it will match the total amount of charges. Suppose if it is 60 plus 40, it will match the 100 to 100. So two charges code, it will combine and match the totals in the invoice totals matching. However, it comes to charges matching, it will compare the individual charge code amount to the charge code amount from invoice to purchase order. There is a slight difference. Now, if both of them are clear, let's move to the very important matching, price and quantity matching. So in price and quantity matching, actually we have two ways, two methods, two-way matching and three-way matching. What is two-way matching means? So two-way matching compares the prices on the PO2 prices on the invoice. So two-way matching compares the prices on the PO to prices on the invoice. When it comes to three-way matching, it compares the prices on the PO to prices on the invoice and quantity on the product receipt to quantity on the invoice. So in two-way matching, it only compares the prices on the purchase order to prices on the invoice, and there is no point of quantity. So quantity is not matched here in the two-way matching process. Whereas it comes to three-way matching process, so as I said, it compares the prices from the purchase order to prices on the invoice, as well as it will also compare quantity on the product receipt to quantity on the invoice is matching or not. Suppose if you receive 10 goods and if you are invoicing only 5 goods, system will not allow you. It says that it is not matching the product receipt quantity. So under three-way matching, you should definitely follow the rules of matching. I mean, the quantity should be same as the product receipt quantity. The invoicing quantity should be same as product receipt quantity. So these are the two methods we have, two-way matching and three-way matching. Let's see how each of them will work now. Okay, I'll just go back to the parameters, accounts payable parameters. I'm here in the accounts payable and then go to accounts payable parameters. Then go to invoice validation and I'll disable this charges matching just to only focus on price and quantity matching. So price and quantity matching we have said not required. Now we are saying that we need two-way matching. Okay, at least one line matching policy is lower than the company line matching policy. The lower matching policies may exist on purchase order lines or in the matching policy form. Do you want to set all of them to use the company line matching policy? Yes. Okay. So two-way matching we have enabled. Then we have the option yellow matching policy override. Select this type of change that can be made when you override the legal entity line matching policy in the matching policy page on the purchase order page. Higher than company policy and lower and higher than company policy is what we have. So we can also override this policy normally at the purchase order level as we have shown you, as I have shown you earlier, where you can change the two-way, three-way matching. Again, I'll show you once I create a purchase order. There you have this option. I mean, there you have this overriding option, yellow matching policy override, maybe higher than company policy or lower than company policy. Then you have this one, unit price match icon. If greater than tolerance or less than tolerance and matching price totals, you can say amount or you can say percentage. I'll come back to this one as well. One second. So this one display unit price match icon. So this will compare actually the unit price of each product to the unit price of each product on from the invoice to the purchase order. So this unit price match icon, you can say if it is greater than tolerance, it should fail, or if it is less than tolerance, it should fail. You can use any of them, if greater than or less than tolerance, or you can say only if greater than the tolerance amount. And the tolerance amount actually have to give here. So we'll give them. So if greater than tolerance, I can say here match price totals. Price total means net amount of the line, each line, net amount of each line will be matched here. So you can say either percentage, you can say 10% like that, or you can say amount. Amount means it doesn't really matter with the percentage. If it is exceeding $100 or if the line amount is exceeding $100, system will fail the matching validation. If the variance amount is less than $100, it will pass the validation. So you can say like that, or you can give both percentage and amount, both of them. So 10%, but you can say up to $50. So you will have this kind of discount somewhere in shopping malls, 10% up to 500 or up to 50 like that, which means suppose if the PO amount is 1000, let's say, so 10% on this will be sorry, $100. But there is also an amount of 50, up to 50. Up to 50 means the maximum amount of variance that is allowed is $50 only. But it can be 10%. 10% in the sense if it is 1000 means it should not go to 100. It should stop at 50 only, or the maximum allowed variance is 50. You can give both percentage as well as amount. But suppose if the invoice amount is only purchase order amount is only 400, if it is 10% means it is 40. So if it is 40 means again it is within the allowed amount limit, so tolerance amount limit. So it will pass here in this situation. So you can avail a discount of 40. Normally in shopping mall they'll keep this kind of offers. So up 10% up to 500, something like that, which means either you will get 10% discount, or if your 10% discount is exceeding up to the maximum discount, so you will only get what is the up to value that they have mentioned. So that's how you will have this, or you have this amount and percentage combination work normally. So here also in this prices matching, it will compare in this way. Total net amount of each line will be compared either with the percentage tolerance or with the total tolerance. You can give anything. Normally most of them will use only percentage, like 10 percentage you can give. And here you can give display price totals match icon. If greater than or less than tolerance, you can give like this. And you can save it. So in two-way matching, as I said, it only compares the prices of the purchase order to the invoice. And I have given 10% tolerance in case if there is any variances. So let's see how this will work while we create any orders now. So I'll go back, create a new purchase order. I'll select the same vendor. Click on OK. So you have your three-way matching enabled here, right? Suppose if I select, so three-way matching or two-way matching? Two-way matching, okay. If I select the same product and same quantity of 10, now I'll go to this maintain charges option. I'll change this charge actually. I'll give something like transport charges and it will give an amount of 100, let's say. And this is of 1,000 amount, as you can see here. And the matching policy is two-way matching as we have set up. So automatically that is taken from the parameters page. Then I can click on save, confirm the order. Then I'll receive the order. received. Then I'll go to invoice, click on generate invoice. Then I can give some number to this one, invoice 55 something. Then that date. So here you can see this quantity is 10, unit price is 100. So total line amount is 1000. So I can click on update my status now. So it is showing as passed, as you can see here. Since there is no difference at all. Now what I'll do is I'll change this unit price from 100 to 101. Then I'll save it. So just 1 rupee increase, and there is 1010 is the line amount, line net amount, as you can see. Now I'll go for update my status. It is showing as failed. Even there is a slight 1 rupee increase also, it is showing as failed in the unit price. So let's see why it is showing as failed. Going here to review, I'm already here in the matching details. I can go. So you can see in the prices matching, unit price matching, and the invoice unit price is 101, but the purchase order unit price is 100. So it is failing here. So, and you can see the net amount here is 1010 and it is 1000 and it is showing as failed here. Net unit price is 1101 and it should be 100 and it is failed. Unmatched order total is 10%. It is what it is showing. Here also you can see it is showing as failed because unit price is 101 and PO unit price is 100 and unit price variance is 1. Unit price tolerance percentage is 0. Actually, for unit price, we don't have any tolerance. For total amount only, we have tolerance actually. So as you see, unit price is increased to $1 and there is no unit price tolerance amount. So it is showing as failed. Normally here in this, for display unit price match icon, this one, what it is says. So if we are using this option actually, it is showing that, if there is a slight increase or decrease in the variance, suppose if I use greater than or less than tolerance or greater than tolerance, if there is any increase or decrease in the unit price of the product, then it will show it as failed. And coming back, I think we can also change the total amount. Let's see how we can alter it. So what I'll do is I'll again go back to this one. So I have saved this and closed this. Then I'll go back to the purchase order once again. Then change the policy to not required and again I'll change it to two-way matching. Okay. Then I'll refresh it. Then again I'll go to invoice, go to pending invoices, edit this existing invoice. If I click on update my status, it shows it is failed here. Suppose if I come here, I'll change the unit price again to 100 and I'll save it. Now it is 1000 here. Here I'm not going to change anything in the unit price. I'll directly change the line amount as something like 1050, let's say. So unit price will disappear when you automatically change the line amount here. So the total line amount is now 1050. Now I will click on update my status. Now also it is showing as failed only. Let's see what happens. So price match, it is failed. Price totals match, it is passing, as you can see here, because it is within the tolerance limit. However, coming to price match, it is showing as failed. So we'll go to matching details. Here you can see unit price on the invoice is showing as 0 actually. 1050 and 1000 is failed. 1005 and 1000 it is showing as failed here, the comparison. However, if I use the same unit price like 100, so now it is 1000. If I click on update match status again, it is showing as passed this time. So this time we can go to matching details and review it. So as you can see, 100 is compared with 100. Then price unit of unit one. Okay. Net amount is 1000 here, compare it to 1000, and net unit price is 100 here, compare it to 100. Okay, now it is showing as passed here. Actually, if there is a slight variance in the unit price also, it will show as failed actually. So this here you don't see any matching variations now. No, there is no allowed variance percentage also actually. Unit price tolerance percentage allowed is 0 only. So that is why this price matching, what it will does is it will compare the unit price as well as the totals of the line to the from the invoice to the purchase order, and if there is a slight change in the unit price, it will show as failed. If it shows as failed, you have no other option other than approving it. So you know how to approve it. We have seen it earlier. You can go to matching details again. Here you have the option of approval. You can click on approve with matching discrepancies, and you can give a comment here. So only when you feel like the invoice failed validations because of some reason, and that is a valid reason, if you feel like, you can approve it. The users will not have a chance to approve such kind of purchase orders, or sorry, invoices with variances, but they will go reach out to their managers to approve such kind of invoices with discrepancies if they will explain the reason of variance. So if they feel like it is a valid variance, they can use this option of approval and approve the variance actually. Coming to quantity matching, here it's not performed because we did not use the three-way matching policy. Now we are going to use it anyway. So this is what happens in two-way matching. Now what I'll do is I'll close this order and then go back to this one, the accounts payable parameters once again. Change this policy, invoice validation, back to three-way matching here. Okay. And I'll also enable this one, automatically update match status. Let's see what happens. So I have updated this to three-way matching now, not two-way matching. Means it have to compare quantity also from the product receipt to the invoice. So let's see if it works or not. So here I'll change the purchase order. I'll refresh this as well. Let's see here, it's automatically changed to three-way matching in the purchase order line. Now let's go back to the same invoice which is pending. Here, edit this invoice. So here you can see you don't see that update match status option available now. Since I have enabled this parameter, automatically update invoice header status, it will not show up here, or it will disappear. It will automatically update the match status. Every time you change something, it will run the match status automatically. See here, it is showing as passed automatically. Now suppose if I change something like this unit price from 100 to 101, let's see what happens. So it's showing as failed automatically. It's showing as failed. We don't have that option here. I mean, it will automatically run the match status. Since there is a variance in the unit price, it is showing as failed. Suppose if I again change it back to 100, so now it is showing as passed again. That's all. Suppose if I change the quantity here to 9, not 10. So it shows it's lesser than the product receipt quantity. I say OK. So and then I will say OK. Now it is 9 into 100, 900. Now see here, it is still showing the match status as failed. It's because of quantity matching. Now if I go to matching details, if I compare the price details here, so all of them are good. Prices are passed. You can see passed, passed, passed. All the price comparison is passed. But when you go to quantity, you can see it is failed. Quantity matching is failed here. You can also see here the options. Which one failed? Quantity matching errors exist. That's what it is saying. How can you check it? Quantity is 9 and there is an unmatched product receipt quantity of 10% actually. Unmatched purchase price total of 10. So that unmatched purchase price total of 100 is there here. Total 10% is there. So invoice quantity is 9 and product receipt quantity is 10 actually. So that is why it is showing failed. If it compares the product receipt quantity to the invoice quantity and shows if there is any variance, like there is no tolerance for this kind of quantity matching and unit price matching actually. If there is any variance, it will show it as failed actually. That's how. If there is a product receipt and if you are going to invoice the product receipt, you have to totally invoice the amount of goods on the product receipt. If it is 10 goods on the product receipt that you have received, you have to invoice all the 10 goods at a time in the invoice. That's what it will. That's how it validates. If you go anything less than or more than it, so it will throw an error message. Suppose if I go for 11 here, more, which is more than 9. So again, it is showing as failed. Again, automatically it shows failed. If I go to matching details again here, if I go to quantity matching, it's see invoice quantity was 11, total product receipt is 10. So it is failed here. So coming to invoice totals, there is no invoice totals option enabled, right? So you don't see anything here. Price charges total and invoice totals are not enabled. Coming to price matching, price is okay. Price matching is okay, but the quantity matching is not. Suppose if I go back here and I'll change the line quantity again. Let's see how it will change. I'll change it to 12, let's say. Save it. Now again it shows as failed. If I go to matching details here, so if I go to quantity matching, again it shows 12 and 10 and the comparison is failed here. And if you want to approve such kind of invoice, which is also with discrepancies, suppose if say that we have to invoice 12 quantity only, then you can use this option, give approval, and you can post the invoice. It will allow you to post the invoice only when you enable this option and give some comment here. You can post it and you can see the approver name here. Actually, this approver ID is linked to the admin ID which I logged in with. That is why I see the person who is approving it here. And the date and time of the approval is also given here. And I can disable it. I'll again go back. So that's how. I'll just change it back to 10 once again. So if you go through this document that is there here, you can see everything. Invoice totals matching, two-way matching, three-way matching, as well as charges matching and how it will be done. You can also see the amounts balances here. So this is an example of invoice totals matching, where the actual invoice amount is 495 and expected invoice total amount, which is means the PO amount is 495. There is no variance. Coming to total discounts, in purchase order you don't have any discount. In invoice you don't have any discount. Coming to purchase order, you have given 9.90% discount. So when you compare 0 to anything, it will be 100% only. Other than 0, if you compare anything to 0, it will be 100% variance. So it is failed here. Coming to charges, they are same. So it is passed. Sales tax, it is 139.98 in the invoice level, and in the purchase order level it is 137.50. there is 2% variance, and it is passed anyway because the tolerance percentage that you have given is something like the allowable tolerance of the invoice totals matching is 20% according to the this example. If it is within 20%, it will pass them, but this one discounts amount is more than 20%, right? It is 100% variance is there, since comparing every value, any value to zero will be 100% variance, so I can see it has failed. So then you can see two-way matching, two-way prices totals matching. So it is showing the net amounts actually, not the uh, unit amount. Invoice net amount means the total line amount of the invoice is 105 and expected net amount is 100. Unmatched percentage is 5 and it's 5%, which is less than the variance. Little variance amount is 10% actually. I mean tolerance amount is 10%. It is less than tolerance, so it is accepting. Whereas it comes to line, 150 is the invoice amount in the second example. 100 is the uh, in 100 is the expected line amount of the or the PO line amount. So there is a variance of $50, which is up to 50%, which is more than the tolerance amount of 10%. So it is showing as failed here. That's what happens in two-way matching. Coming to three-way matching. So it's not three-way matching actually. It's another example of two-way matching only. One fifty, 50 failed, 200, 105. The purchase price total invoice net amount. Okay. So you can go with this documentation, actually go through it once again. For every parameter that we have, there is a valid example as well as explanation here for two-way matching and three-way matching. Let come back to me if you have any doubts once after going through this document of two-way matching and three-way matching actually. So this will give you a good overview of what, and that would be all for today actually. So there would be a lot of misunderstandings in this matching policies by the clients actually, but this document gives a good overview of our understanding of how the matching validations function. Last time when I was working in support, one of the client was asking like under invoice totals matching, this client was expecting that only the total of the invoice amount should match with the total of the PO amount. So only the total amount, what means compare combination of all the subtotal amounts, there will be a final total, right? So only that total amount should be compared to the total amount on the purchase order. That's what client was expecting. But what system does is it also compares the subtotal amounts like charges to charges, sales tax, total sales tax to total sales tax from invoice to purchase order, total charges from total charges on invoice to purchase order. It will compare separately, as well as it also compares the grand total amount. So client was not expecting that it would compare the subtotals, and client is disappointed with the performance. But however, once shown this document to the client, that it was clearly documented how system would function. So then they have to agree that they misunderstood how the matching policies work. So that happens sometimes in support roles. So they would come up with a lot of questions on these matching policies, and this document will give you a good overview